Everyone goes to the west coast. You can see why. This is the road James Bond went to in Skyfall. It's serene and stunning, but a bit narrow for what we want. Glencoe and Rannoch Moor, just next door, are majestic. There are bubbling waterfalls, huge glacial valleys, and even the occasional lone building, seemingly dropped down casually purely to give some perspective to the enormity of its surroundings. But in many ways, the landscape's almost too big, and the roads often a touch too straight. So we're heading east, past Perth, up to Blairgowrie, and into what is really the very heart of Scotland. Because nestled in the bosom of the mighty Cairngorms, there is a stretch of tarmac that is even better to drive than 007's driveway and the Glencoe Gallop.
This is the old military road in the Cairngorm Mountains. It's my favourite road in the UK, and therefore probably my favourite road in the entire world. If you look at OS maps, you'll actually see that there are several old military roads dotted across Scotland, and they're all built in the mid 18th century, first by a chap called General Wade, and then by Major William Caulfield, who built the road that we're going to. It starts in Blairgowrie on the A93, and you know gradually you obviously leave the town first, and then the Castle Count increases, and the lowland fields, all the skittish sheep, they gradually recede, and then you get more into the moorland with the grouse and the deer and the people stalking the deer, and the scenery gets more and more breathtaking. You can see it coming from way off, and then you start climbing up, and that originally, the first major climb, you know it when you come to it, was actually used as a hill climb by the Scottish Automobile Club as a reliability trial in 1905. There are no recorded times for it because apparently several of the competitors actually failed to even get to the start, such was the testing nature of the climb. Obviously today it's not a problem, certainly not for the Aston. It leads you up to the first of two ski stations, and the Glenshee ski station is the reason I first came to this road whilst I was still at university. If you've never skied in Scotland before, then I can assure you it is the hardest day's skiing you will ever have in your life, whether it's beautiful sunshine or howling a gale. But it led me to the road, so I'm happy. Of course, when you stop at the ski stations in the summer, it's almost haunting, because you've just got these empty chairlifts and abandoned machinery, which I can't help having a poke around. I love the Peace Bashers, but they look so forlorn in the middle of summer without any snow, but fascinating nonetheless. Glenshee is really the gateway, I suppose, to the old military road. Well, that's what it feels like. And you drop down from the hill into this amazing valley, which is actually, it's the bit I always remember when we took a Zagato, a V12 Zagato, up there a couple of years ago, and it was lined with snow, and the river was immensely cold, frozen in parts, and it was just this amazing feeling, because the road has this beautiful flow to it as it follows the line of the meandering river. And as you carry on further up, the road just gets more and more beautiful and changes in character. So you go back through fields which in the summertime have this beautiful I don't know, it's a different feeling to being out in the moorland with all the grasses and everything.
As you near Balmoral, the scenery goes through one of its costume changes, throwing on a mantle of pines so that the sky becomes a flickering mosaic of blue and white above you. If it weren't for the yellow flashes, the Alloro green paint, a colour originally mixed for Zagato-bodied Astons, would provide a perfect camouflage.
The A93 leads on to Balmoral, and then the Royal Lochnagar Distillery, if you're interested in that sort of thing. But we always cut the corner and head on to the B976, which is a very small road that leads you up sort of over the moorland. You'll see the posts for the snow posts, which obviously help you find the way in winter, where it really does feel extremely remote. It's almost the only bit of road that feels like another part of the country, because it reminds me very much of the North Yorkshire moors, and it feels totally empty up on the top, but very beautiful, and just a little more rugged even than the rest of the road. Eventually the reduced size of the single track B road opens out again onto A road. It's now become the A939, and this is the bit where I despite having driven it lots of times, I always forget bits and sort of think, I've forgotten this bit that sort of clings to the side of a valley. And eventually it goes on up into Tomontal and Granton-on-Spey, but occasionally you see little finger posts pointing out across the moor with a track, and it signposts the way of the original old military road, which obviously the modern incarnation doesn't quite follow on occasion. No idea where it leads, probably to some big house out in the middle of nowhere, I should think. This road, it's more than just a piece of tarmac somehow. It's like it's sort of alive and living with the landscape. It's just amazing.
There are times when the scenery is so breathtaking that you just want to pull over, stop the engine and savour your surroundings. Of course, the other part of you wants to press on, doesn't want to interrupt the flow of the drive, wants to see what's over the next crest. If only you could somehow do both.
So why have we bought the Aston Martin N430 here? Well, apart from the fact that it's British and beautiful and somehow fits with the majesty of the landscape, it is also absolutely brilliant to drive. It might feel a bit old-fashioned these days. I mean, it's got hydraulically assisted power steering for a start, and it's got a funny manual gearbox, but on a road like this that really demands your attention and requires proper damping, a car that's small enough to feel wieldy but is also balanced enough to actually enjoy, this is just about perfect.
The N430 gets 430 brake horsepower, as the name suggests, and 361 pounds-foot of torque. These are only minimal lifts over the standard car, and 0 to 62 miles an hour in 4.8 seconds isn't exactly thump in the back fast, but it's fast enough, and the chassis is arguably where the magic happens. Aston has upgraded the anti-roll bars, stiffened the springs and revised the rates of the passive dampers. The result is a firm car that instills confidence, yet it still has enough compliance to work on these unforgiving roads. There is also this wonderful balance to the handling that allows you to work both ends of the car, managing the ebb and flow of grip as you feel your way into, through and out of a corner. The N in N430 stands for Nürburgring, but that really shouldn't put people off, because I know people get annoyed about sort of things being developed at the Nürburgring and not working on the road, but this really does. Aston's obviously got a lot of history racing on the Nordschleife and doing extremely well there. But this car, it's only 20 kilos lighter than the V8 Vantage S. Most of that probably comes from the carbon bucket seats, I should think, which are very good and hold you well. But the car just seems to work really, really well as a road car, and it's wonderfully talkative, which I think is the thing I'll take away from it most. The noise, well, from the outside it sounds suitable, I think it's fair to say, for this scenery. It's one thing, I think inside you just don't get quite enough of that beautiful unleaded gargle that you get outside. I do love it though. Of all the places in all the world that I've been lucky enough to go, Scotland is still right at the top of my list as far as I'm concerned. It is just
breathtaking. The other wonderful thing is that there's hardly anyone up here. It's just us, some grouse, some sheep. The Queen, of course. Certainly see why she's got her holiday home up here. An Aston Martin really does feel like the most appropriate car. If only for when you get out and look at it amongst this landscape. It just fits somehow.
This road really does have everything you could want. The scenery is so varied along its length. The tarmac too ranges from fast and open through challenging ducking and diving sequences to hairpins stacked on double-digit gradients. This part of the world means a lot to me, so perhaps I'm biased. But if you found yourself in a dream, walking towards an Aston, swan door invitingly open, then I think the road you'd want it to be sitting on is this one.
So we've now been to the Col de la Bonnet in a McLaren, Mallorca in a Boxster GTS, Romania in an F-Type, and the Cairngorms in an Aston Martin N430. Where should we go next? Well, let us know.